Thank you for being available today, Special Envoy Rubin. Last December, at the end of the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit, the State Department announced your appointment as Special Envoy and Coordinator of the State Department's Global Engagement Center, the GEC. You've been tasked with leading one of the most powerful government offices in the United States to slow down or eliminate, and counter foreign adversaries who attempt to undermine the interests of the United States. This is the job of countering certain foreign actors, China, Russia, transcriminal organizations such as ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and the Wagner Group. There are others, but I'm just naming a few. I'd like to talk to you today about the interests of the United States. Today is the second and last day of the Russia-Africa Summit. Can you comment on the summit in St. Petersburg and your work related to the actors that I just mentioned? I mean, is there a national security threat to the United States? James?
Thank you very much for your question. I did begin this job about 6 months ago, and I must say it's a difficult challenge because disinformation and information manipulation is a complex subject. But we do believe that, particularly in the case of Russia, that there is a clear attempt by the Russians to mislead the world about the war in Ukraine and now about a food crisis that may develop because of their decisions. At today's summit and yesterday's meeting, President Putin is putting out a lot of information that's not true, claiming that the Black Sea Grain Initiative, which enabled 32 million tons of grain and food to be exported, is going to be ended by them. And the fact that they made food as a weapon is clear. They have made the world's most vulnerable populations part of this war, because not only have they pulled out of the Black Sea Grain Initiative, but they've attacked the ports and the facilities where grain and food could be exported. So when they claim that, they're the good guys here, those are what we call crocodile tears. They are purposefully, intentionally making food part of this war, while the West, led by the United States, has worked very, very hard to try to keep food separate from the war so that food prices will not increase, so that availability around the world will be possible. And as a result of Russia's policies, at the most simple level, Russia claims that the sanctions are interfering with food exports. The reason why we know that's not true is because Russia had a bumper crop last year and exported as much wheat as they've ever exported. So food is not part of the sanctions. Agriculture is not part of the sanctions. Russia has made huge amounts of money, billions and billions of dollars selling food, and they're now making food a weapon of this war. And it was bad enough they made Ukraine suffer from this war. Now they're making the most developed people in the world suffer. In Africa, in Asia, in the Sahel, in Yemen. These are the people that suffer when food prices go up and food availability drops.
Okay, so let me ask you about disinformation, because disinformation is, to my understanding, a big element of the job that you have been tasked to take on for your government, right? So disinformation here, when I say this, just to be clear, I mean this to be a distinct concept from censoring speech, but as a national security threat. So what is your assessment of where, when, and how disinformation is a national security threat in Africa? I mean, who's doing what and how? Like, does your office view, issues with ISIS or Al-Qaeda, and as you mentioned, the Black Sea Grain Initiative? What have you got to say about disinformation as a national security threat?
Thank you. We do believe disinformation and information manipulation is a national security threat, and Africa provides some pretty clear examples of that. The Wagner Group, a brutal private military that now the Russians have accepted that they really make it part of their military, uses lies in West Africa to try to justify their presence in these countries where they're paid and they lie about the peacekeeping initiatives that protected Africans, and they lie about what they're doing there, and they try to discredit the France, discredit the United Nations, discredit the United States, claiming that we're some kind of colonial effort, when in fact Putin has shown that he wants the Wagner Group countries to be his colonies. Those are the only ones he's offering grain to at this summit. So disinformation is a tool of war for the Russians. Unfortunately, they have seen information that way for a long, long time. They do it at the highest levels. I mean, on any given day, a Russian leader will lie about the reasons for the war in Ukraine. They'll lie about claims the United States has biological weapons there. And now they're lying about this Black Sea Grain Initiative and their reasons for pulling out of it. Their pulling out of it is damaging to the most vulnerable populations. We know it was working. We know it was providing food and grain, and we know Russia was able to export as much food and grain as it wanted. And so disinformation is a national security threat because it can make people not appreciate the damage done by Russia and blame other countries for the Russian policy.